We will be writing an equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and I sort of name this as solving for b. So writing an equation, so solving for b. So the question is, we're going to write an equation for the graph of a line that passes through the points -6, -1, and -12, -3. So you would think that you would go grab your graph paper to graph that line, but the question itself is write an equation. So this is extra information of that line that passes through. So really what we're just going to do is write that equation. So I'm going to set my points up as a table because when I write y equals mx plus b, 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 we need to find our slope. So to find our slope, the easiest way I find to find slope is to put it in a table. And we've got our slope here. Ooh, there's lots of negatives in here. So I want to make sure I'm thinking of a number line. So from starting at -6 and I go down to -12 will be a negative number, and that will be a -6. Starting at 1 to 3, or -1, going down the number line to -3 would be also a negative number, and that would be a -2. So now my slope, m equals the change in y over the change in x, will be -2 over, because that's our y, the change in y, and over -6, which is the change. So that -6 here is that change in x. This -6 right here is the number -6 point at going left number 6, but this -6 out here is the change in x. So when we simplify that, we can see that a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 6 3 times. So my slope is 1/3, so I'll bring that into my equation. Y equals 1/3 x plus, and then remember, b is the y-intercept. So that y-intercept is when, here's what I'm thinking in my head, when x is 0. So I notice that this one's not the y-intercept, and this one is not the y-intercept. So it cannot be -1 or -3. So that's the most common mistake, is to use those numbers. So I need to calculate. I need to solve for b. So I need to find an x and a y so I can get b by itself. So I notice that my equation, or in my coordinate pair, I already had an x and a y. So my x is -6 and my y is -1. So I will substitute those in. So negative, I need to be careful because that -1 is the y. 1/3 times a -6. Oh, and I'll need to make that a fraction to multiply it. Bring down my plus b. So if I multiply 1/3 times -6, that goes into 2 times, and it's negative, and the 2, there's more in the top. Bring down my -1, bring down my equals, bring down my plus b, and I'll add 2 to both sides to solve for b. So my b, which is my y-intercept, is a +1. So now I can put that in my coordinate pair, 0, +1. But I can also take that b and substitute it back into my equation for the final equation of y equals 1/3 x plus 1, which is my y-intercept. And there is the equation. So we kind of have 3 steps here, remember. We have one step right here. Step number 1 is to find the slope, or calculate the slope. Step number 2 right here is so step number 2 is to solve for the y-intercept. So we need to substitute one of the points. Now, it doesn't matter which one it is. It could be either of them. So if you liked the -12, -3, you could have substituted that in and calculated the same y-intercept. And then the last one is number 3. Last step is to write the equation. Now, don't do all that work and forget to write the equation, because write the equation. And because that's the question that we have to answer, is to write that equation at the end.